Across Cape Town, a homage to Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the South African anti-apartheid icon who has died aged 90. Buildings were lit up in purple after his famous bright clerical gown. Tutu won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984 and battled pancreatic cancer for 20 years. Earlier, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa paid his respects to the national hero.
He knew in his soul that good would triumph over evil, that justice would prevail over iniquity, and that reconciliation would prevail over revenge and recrimination. He knew that apartheid would one day end, and that democracy would come.
Tutu coined the term Rainbow Nation to describe South Africa, and in 1996 led a harrowing journey into the history of apartheid as the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Outside his long-term residence in Soweto, locals gathered to bid him farewell.
As you know, that this street is the only street where in the world the two Nobel Peace Prize winners have lived. You can then imagine us, the neighbors around. We are really touched by his passing.
He'll be missed a lot, played a very important role in the lives of blacks and just the lives of everyone in South Africa, had a very huge impact. So he'll be dearly missed, and may his soul rest in peace.
Desmond Tutu's impact changed not only South Africa, but stretched far into the world, empowering pro-democracy activists and non-violent forms of resistance. His funeral has been set for the 1st of January.
Tributes are continuing to pour in for the man South Africans affectionately called the Arch. Well, one man who knew him well and wrote extensively about his life is Reverend Michael Battle, and he joins me now from New York. Thank you for joining us, Reverend. Archbishop Tutu had an infectious laugh, and he was never afraid to speak his mind. Can you tell us about your relationship with him?
When I was doing my academic PhD, doctoral degree, I had an opportunity to go and meet him and ask him if he would permit me to write my dissertation on his theology. And the first thing he said was, "Let us pray." And at that moment, I realized this was not just academic work. And subsequent events occurred, and I was also allowed to actually live with him in Cape Town when he was at the end of his years of being the Archbishop of the province of Southern Africa. So as you can imagine, this was a wonderful opportunity for me.
He leaves a huge void for South Africans, and he was a voice of hope for so many. How do you think he'll be remembered?
I think in several ways. I think first, he has articulated a theology and a political well-being in terms of what it means to be a human being. The term he uses is Ubuntu, which is a proverb which means I am because you are, and because you are, I am. So it's a wonderful way of practicing humanity based on interdependence, not a weak codependence, not a negative way of putting others down, but a way of being in congruence in which each of our interests are aligned and do not conflict. So I think his concept, his theological concept of Ubuntu is one legacy. The other, he chaired the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which has been one of the most profound experiments of a nation state. And he helped us to understand the difference between retributive justice and restorative justice. I think lastly, he will be remembered for his ecumenism or his interreligious dialogue, as one of his best friends in his latter years was His Holiness, the Dalai Lama.
He also was He used his high-profile role to speak against the oppression of black people in South Africa and beyond. How did he balance his religious beliefs with his political perspectives?
Yeah, his theological religious worldview was such that God is always seeking cooperation, seeking interdependence, the very image of God. As a Christian, according to Tutu, the very image of God is interdependence. And as he began to articulate that around the world, he understood that apartheid is also a religious worldview, a dysfunctional one, however, because that way, for the Afrikaner, that white identity, they understood that God was on their side. And the beauty and the genius for Tutu was to help them to see that God is always about cooperation, always about the enhancement of human identity, not the degradation of human identity.
Reverend Battle, thank you very much for speaking to Euronews.